Good evening. My name is Enos P. Griffin Jr., and I'm here taking a class at Fort Hays. And today I'm going to speak to you about the history of special education and the learning disabled. To understand the battles being fought for these items, we have to understand that the families have gone through quite a bit over time, as well as the education system has gone through quite a bit at a time to get us to this point right here. In the end, I will give a summation of it all and also where I think we will be in about 20 years. Uh, Back in 1975, Congress passed a law to enact the Public Law 94-142 in 1975, and Congress did that because of landmark discrimination cases in the educational system. Uh, in the 19th and 20th century, waves of immigrants started coming to the United States. And so therefore the citizens were afraid of how they would react to our societal things that we do in our society. And also they didn't want to breed hatred or religious intolerance and crime and things like that. And they wanted to teach the children who were coming here our values. So social and political leaders, what they did was they searched for ways to reach down to the lower portions of society in order to teach our shared values here in the United States. To slide number 3. Let's go back to slide number 2. Also, there was an educational reformer named Horace Mann. And what Horace Mann did was he proposed a solution to all of these societal needs in education and these social problems. So what he did was he decided that, hey, a good idea would be to uniform the values and teaching of all the schools so that everyone would learn the same thing. And it would also socialize children and improve interpersonal relationships and improve social conditions and teach everyone, the common values that all children should learn, social, religious, economic, and so forth and so on. And so he recommended that communities establish common schools funded by tax dollars in order to do this. And that way they could educate the children all together. And they believe that when children from different social, religious, and economic backgrounds were educated together, they would learn to accept each other and respect each other. Also, the compulsory attendance for these schools at that time, laws gave schools official power to prosecute parents legally if they failed to send their children to school, because the poor children would work for a while and then they wouldn't be seen for a while, either working the land or working the farm or whatever they were doing at that time in order to make it day to day. But what they wanted to do was get the children to come to school, because poor children attended school sporadically and they quit early, or either they didn't enter school at all, depending on how the parents felt about it and what the needs of the family and the parents was at that time. To the next slide, slide number 4. The dawn of special education programs. The first special education program were delinquency prevention programs. And what happened is in children in urban slums, they would call them at-risk children. And so what they would do is cut school a lot. And so they had to come up with a program to prevent this. So urban school districts designed manual training classes as a supplement for general education programs. And what this would do is by 1890, hundreds of thousands of children were learning carpentry. They would learn how to work with their hands, not getting the education that they really needed, but they were learning manual labor, metalwork, sewing, cooking, and drawing in special classes. Children were also taught social values in these classes also. Early special education programs also focused a lot on moral training of African American children. Special schools and special classes for children with disabilities came about, especially deafness and blindness and mental retardation. They did exist in the 19th century, but they gradually increased during the 20th century. And the programs for these children with specific learning disabilities called brain injury, minimal brain or dysfunction, and other terms became more common in the 1940s. However, many early special education programs were private, and so the children didn't really have access to those places right there. They were either private or residential. The quality and availability of the programs also varied between different states. Good special education programs were rare at that time and difficult to access. So for most children with disabilities, special education programs were simply not available for them. And then came 1954. Brown versus the Board of Education. The Supreme Court in 1954 issued a landmark rights decision, Brown versus Board of Education. In Brown, school children were able, in 4 states, argued that segregated schools were inherently unequal and deprived equal protection under the law. The Supreme Court agreed and found that African American children had the right to equal education opportunities and that segregated schools have no place in the field of special education. Just the word segregation alone was a way to kind of put down the children and give them feelings of inferiority. And so the Supreme Court agreed. We come to this question when it's presented that does segregation of children in public schools solely on the basis of race, even though the physical facilities and other are equal, no matter what school that they're in, do they deprive children of the minority group of equal education opportunities? And the Supreme Court believed that it did. Also, just to separate them again, to repeat what I said, them from others of similar age and qualifications solely because of their race generated a feeling of inferiority as their status in the community that may affect their hearts and minds in a way unlikely ever to be undone. And there was a landmark decision that Brown versus the Board of Education. After that decision, parents of children with disabilities also began to bring lawsuits against the schools where they saw a light that they could walk through. They gave them opportunity and gave them a chance and helped believe in that they can get it done also for the children with disabilities because they were being excluded and segregated also. The parents argued that by excluding these children, schools were discriminating against the children because of their disabilities. Slide number 6. Elementary and Secondary Education of 1965. ESEA, Congress enacted ESEA in 1965 to address inequality of education opportunity for underprivileged children. This landmark legislation provided resources to help ensure that disadvantaged students had access to quality education. And in 1966, Congress amended the ESEA to establish a grant program to help states in the initiation, expansion, and improvement of programs and projects. In 1970, Congress enacted Education and of the Handicap Act, Papa Lima 91-230, in an effort to encourage states to develop educational programs for individuals with disabilities. Slide number 7. In my summation and 20 years into the future, in 20 years or maybe even less, the education of the disabled may be even more specialized by the recognition of the special gifts that each of them bring. Each of them that I have come in contact with seem to have some special gift that their fellow students who are not learning disabled could learn from. I've seen this many times. Where they lack in some things, they are stronger in others, and so therefore bring a strength that may be able to help others, but not only others that are non-learning disabled, but also those who are learning disabled, because I've seen them work with others who are not learning disabled, but I believe that their special gifts will be used also in encouraging and mentoring those who are learning disabled in the future. I believe that 20 years from now that they should by then have a voucher where the parents can send them to any school that they want to send them to. And the parents would have a choice for the first time to really pick and choose the school that they want their learning disabled child to go to. I believe that at that school also is where they will become mentors and also become even some of the teachers in those very schools of the learning disabled. I believe that is in their future, and I hope that someday soon that they will receive a voucher uh, to go to the school in which they would want to learn. Also, it will give them a chance to display their strengths and to improve upon their strengths in order that they may become the teachers of the learning disabled, and maybe not even just the learning disabled, but also of the non-learning disabled. Thank you again. This is Enos P. Griffin Jr., and that ends my present. Thank you.